Fight number 2 comes from the Brazilian league. This happened a little bit late last night. If you're an American watching this from the stateside, this happened late last night in this Brazil game. 23 red cards awarded in a game, which breaks a record back from 1954 in a Brazilian game with 22 red cards were awarded. This one had 23 red cards awarded instead. This fight broke out between players and coaches. So there was no fans involved in this one at all. It was just the players and the coaching staff. Cruzeiro and Atlético Mineiro for the right to be crowned champions of the Campeonato Mineiro, top flight in the Brazilian state of Minas Gerais. It was just a 1-goal game that actually ended things. I believe Atlético did win. But the shot comes in from a Cruzeiro player and the goalkeeper for Atlético, Everson. They kind of collide there. And then you can kind of see that Everson was a little bit upset with what happened. And then puts a knee on the chest of the Cruzeiro player, and his name was Christian. Just name's Christian, it looks like. No last name, no nothing. And he just gets pushed, and then all of a sudden, melee breaks, and all hell breaks loose. And then we see a whole bunch of just tackles and punches and kicks flying in all over the place. And it's just crazy because I don't think there was a red card actually awarded. I don't think the referee went in his back pocket and awarded red cards. I think he just started ejecting players. And the security was all about the fans at this point. So it's really just up to the officials to try to get this thing underway. And 23 red cards in a game is just crazy. And especially coming from from the Brazilian league and also Brazilian Hulk. I don't know if people remember, but he's still playing, still in top physical form like he normally is. He threw a couple punches in there, but it just starts with, just haymakers flying in every way. Typically in sporting fights, and especially in soccer, we don't typically see, punches thrown. We typically don't see that. And we saw fights. We saw, flying kicks coming in like we're in the Karate Kid or something. We see Daniel LaRusso up in here. And we just see all these fights coming out, and 23 red cards were awarded. We don't know the exact punishment that's going to be issued in this at all. I'm sure that will come out here a little bit later today. I'm sure the whole Brazilian Football Federation has taken a long look at this because it was about, I think, 2-3 minute fight, I believe. So I don't know exactly, the extent of how long they've broken this thing down. But they're going to have a long look at this, and I'm sure the Football Federation is looking at this thing close, looking at every single frame, breaking it down frame by frame. But they're going to have a long look at this of just trying to dish out the punishments accordingly. Again, maybe you can just punish the team overall because it's a team sport, and all these players, all these players fought each other, and all these coaches. Do the coaches get punishment? Does the players get punished? If I'm being honest with you, I just think everyone should get punished. I think the whole team should get punished. I think they should forfeit their next game. Whoever that's against, I think they should just forfeit their next game, whenever that is. Because, 23 players got a red card, or coaches got red cards. I think that's enough punishment to make them forfeit their next game, give a victory to the team. And, I don't know what the exact rule is. Maybe it's a 3-0 loss. Maybe it's a 5-0 loss, whatever it is. But I think you punish them and make them forfeit their next game because the extent and the amount of players and coaches that were actually in this whole mess. This is different from the Celtic one because that one was mainly just fans being fans and, the rivalry and all that coming out. But this was strictly players and coaches. This was all on the field. This had nothing to do with fans. This had nothing to do with the outcome of a game. This was at the end of the first half. I think they were 6 minutes into stoppage time at this point. But this is just kind of where the game can get bad in soccer. And we've seen it happen a couple of times. We even think back to the AFCON Cup final a couple months ago. We talked about that. And then we talk about what happened with Celtic Rangers yesterday. We talked about this, what happened with Atlético Mineiro and Cruzeiro yesterday. But I think that's the rightful punishment because you don't want this to happen ever again. You don't want teams around the league or teams around the world see that was just a slap on the wrist from this particular federation, specifically kind of talking about Brazil here. But if a Brazilian side were to see this and see that these sides got a slap on the wrist, and we see, these players that threw these punches or these kicks only get a game or two suspension, then what's stopping these other teams from doing it? There's nothing that actually is stopping them, for these other teams, especially in the Brazilian league, to actually, not do this again, because they see this slap on the wrist. How do we could do the same thing, and then we should get the same punishment, because the bar is now set with an altercation like this. Whatever the punishment is dished out, that's the standard set. That's what the bar is set at. And it's just interesting to think that, the soccer can get, pretty dark sided like that. And it's a bad thing. It gives the game a black eye as well, because everyone, I think, likes fights, and I think everyone likes altercations, especially in games where fights aren't the norm. Like if it's boxing, UFC, that's one different thing. And in hockey, I think that's a different thing as well, because fighting is ultimately a part of the game. But if we look at a game like American football, basketball, baseball, look at the game of soccer, fighting's not a part of the game. And obviously there's, some pushing and shoving after plays, or maybe some certain challenges. People want to have a couple words with each other. In rivalries, sometimes emotions spill over, but we've never seen an extent to this. 23 players, 23 players and coaches given red cards. That broke the record from 1954. So over 60 years, this whole record stood of 22 red cards in a game. They beat them by one with one red card here. But hopefully the Brazilian Federation, I don't think FIFA could get involved with this thing, because it's not an international thing. I think it just simply has to be the Brazilian Football Federation to get involved with this. So I would like to see a harsh punishment put out there, because, again, Brazilian soccer fans, I think the South American soccer fans, they're on level with the European soccer fans. I think they're both crazy in their own right. I think that's what the way it is. And let's see what goes on there.